India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu pledged to deepen their strategic partnership. That was on Sunday as Modi made his first visit to the West African country. New Delhi said Modi's trip represented a meeting of the largest democracy in the world and the largest one in Africa, doubling the two as natural partners. Now, the visit came as made a review push by the India and Nigeria for permanent representation on the UN Security Council, and as India seeks to find its place in a multipolar world. Now, during the meeting, both leaders said they will sought to usher in a new chapter in the two countries' relationships, and in the areas of defense, energy, technology, trade, and development. Prime Minister Modi and President Bola Tinubu also pledged to grant collaboration in counter-terrorism, maritime security, and intelligence sharing. Now, this means that it will help both countries to address the growing threats in the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Guinea, which is one of the world's most dangerous areas of piracy. Well, let's talk to a director at the Nigerian India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also a legal practitioner, Mr. Kunle Ajagbe. Good afternoon. It's good to see you after a while.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, another good meeting, I must say here. The last time President Tinubu went to India, I think there was a summit then, and this collaboration, I think, has started. Yes. And now we had the Indian Prime Minister coming to the country. Like, I want to make us understand what this visit means to you. You will understand it better than we do. Then before we go into some selling points that we think are notable about this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is, by all accounts, it was a success.
Indeed.
And I think the vibes, if we might put it that way, yes, were quite positive from both sides. Starting from the descent of the Indian Prime Minister from his plane, he got a key to Abuja. Of course, quite notably, the award of the GCON on him, which is quite significant, and it was also well received. And not to forget the light but also quite symbolic point of him addressing our president as Oremi, which, as you may know, means my friend. So it tells us that the chemistry was good. But that's on the one side. Good. On the other side is the fact that starting from the very high level, for both countries, it ticked the diplomatic box. It helped to reaffirm what has already been there, which is that the relationship is quite good. And coming after a 17-year hiatus of such visits from India, this has helped to sort of like fill in the gaps and reaffirm it. So from a diplomatic standpoint, it's all very good. We can drill down into the granular details of the economy, the business side, the investment side, but from the headlines and the coverage, it's been all positive, I would say.
Interesting stuff. Well, we're always interested in the Naira and Kobo angle of this for us, the business journalists. But sincerely speaking, looking at the sectors now, yes, energy has been one thing. And Nigeria is actually, I think, Africa, one of the largest trader yes, with India yes, from Africa. So that's also significant. We also have more than 200 companies already investing in Nigeria yes, from India. And also Nigerians also investing vice versa. But let's look at these sectors. Where do you think we can benefit more from each other?
Okay, so it's been largely beneficial to both sides.
Yes, I know.
By most conservative estimates, over time, Indian companies have invested anywhere between $27 billion in the Nigerian economy. Now, I must say that this was not at once. It's a cumulative aggregate of investment over time. A lot is going on in the space of pharmaceuticals. Quite a number of drugs that are available in the Nigerian market are from India. Now, that's one significant footprint that Indian businesses have here. Another space in which Indian companies also have very prominent is light industry. And I will give you a very good example. Plastics. Whether it be for the tank, the ubiquitous tanks that many of us have at home or in the offices, or just as simple as plates.
Wow.
Yes. And you need not go too far than Ota in Ogun State to verify this point. There's a lot of Indian presence in the fast-moving consumer goods space. I know that as a fact. I'm sure you also are quite aware of the presence of Indian companies in the medical space as well. True. And it's not just medical tourism, but just medicals generally. A lot is going on in the space of defense and so on, which obviously doesn't make so much headline news because of its very nature, but quite a lot is going on in that space. A lot is also going on in the space of ICT, information communication technology, and quite a number of big companies in Nigeria. In fact, not just big companies, small, medium-sized companies have had one time or the other to source ICT support from India. So there's a huge interflow between both sides, and not to forget as well too that just people-to-people contact, what is called P2P, is really the major driver of the relationship. And going forward, there's a huge anticipation that has built up. There's a huge expectation that has built up in the aftermath of the visit that it can give a lot of impetus to confidence on both sides, but confidence to the business community on both sides, from the Indian side, from the Nigerian side, that, look, there's obviously a rapport, there's obviously some chemistry between the Indian Prime Minister and the Nigerian President, and hopefully that can ginger more business initiatives going forward. So, like I said, it's been all quite positive, and if we were to read the tea leaves, it's looking similarly positive as well.
Indeed. I'm excited about that confidence, investor confidence coming back one way or the other. You know, the relationship between the president and the PM, that cordial relationship, it has an impact one way or the other.
Because it sends a right positive and right signal to both sides that, look, I'm confident in you, you are confident in me, we're friends. I address you as my friend. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
I think that's the threats on the Indian Ocean, Gulf of Guinea, and all of that. That's about maritime security, intelligence sharing.
Yes.
How do you also think that
that is quite significant, because those are trade routes. If you look at the map of the world, those are major trade routes, and they, if anything were to compromise the integrity of those trade routes, it will affect supply chain, and we've seen examples of that during COVID. There was disruption to global supply chain. And during some localized incidents, it affects trade. It affects business confidence. It affects so many things, even though it may look so far away in the ocean and so on and so forth. And when making projections, it is important. Nations take such things very seriously, particularly maritime countries. India is a maritime country. Nigeria is a maritime country. We have ample access to the sea. So it's in the strategic interest of both countries to ensure that, to guarantee trade, to guarantee the flow of people, to guarantee so many things, it's important to ensure that there's unimpeded trade flows by the sea. So if the experiences are quite similar, so it's important that Nigeria learns from India and India learns from Nigeria in that respect.
On a bit of a lighter note, you will see many Indians coming into the country, having a lot to do, executive positions and all of that. I think in the ICT, not just the ICT space, really, I think the medical space too, like you mentioned. And that really interests me, because just even recently in a flight, I saw many of them coming into the country, and I was looking around, now what is happening? There's still something about Nigeria that gives investors confidence. I don't know what that is. Is it the population? Is it, considering our reforms at the moment, some will say, well, it's the right time to invest in Nigeria, while some will say, I still don't have confidence in that country. But what do you think is that thing that brings people in?
Okay, there isn't one single answer to that, and that's the way I assess it. The nature of your business, your risk appetite, all of those things influence whether people would want to invest in a particular destination. Now, the headlines some time ago were indicative of companies leaving Nigeria. Yes. I mean, no denying that. Maybe less is said about those coming into Nigeria, as your experience has rightly said. So, for instance, if my risk appetite as a businessman is such that I don't mind whatever may or may not happen in Nigeria, then I would jolly well be here as well. Now, as to what is attracting people, hopefully you can begin to see it isn't one thing that will attract people to Nigeria. There are several things. India and Nigeria share quite a lot of similarities: population, colonial experience, difficulties post-independence, and so on and so on. So again, for Indians that I've interacted with, there's a lot that seems familiar to them. So that may partly explain what looks like the attraction here. But like I said, going forward, it all looks quite positive.
Now let's look at the chamber now. The chamber, how has it been? What are you doing more to strengthen this ties, to make it more attractive, if I can use that word?
Yes.
What is the chamber doing? Because I know a lot has to do. They have to pass through the chambers when they are coming in, Nigerian, Indian businessmen and all of that. But how has it been? What is the turnout? And what more are you doing to make sure that they keep coming?
Okay, so I think, without claiming any credit for the visit, but we did play a role.
Of course.
However minimal it might, because that's at the level of government.
Okay.
But also we help to make it a bit easier when Nigerians are looking in the direction of India, or Indians are looking in this direction as well. So even as simple as trade inquiries, in many instances to dispute resolution, and so on. And then, of course, policy advisory to government on both sides have been some of the things that we can easily lay credit to. Now, going forward, this visit by the Indian Prime Minister has easily animated a lot of our activities, a lot of inquiries. And I imagine that without letting the cat out of the bag, there are initiatives that we are planning subsequent to this visit now.
Now, I took you on the reforms. I was trying to ask you, I just like your views generally on that, because those reforms, we've seen the fallout, IMF, World Bank, everyone giving comments and all. But my question really, do you think that, because majorly many believe that this is to attract investment into the country.
Yes, correct.
Investors want to get their monies back. We see what's happening in the aviation sector,
yes,
where guys can now repatriate their funds, Emirates is back and all of that. So it's not all bad news.
No, it's not.
So what do you make of it? And at the moment, what more do you think can be done to block some of the challenges, the fallout of these reforms ongoing?
Okay, so for the business community, reforms is always good. And part of the key issues with any set of reforms for the business community primarily must involve ease of doing business. It must still be made much easier. So that's one major issue. The second issue is what you've also alluded to, and that is, I bring in my money, I've invested it, turned it around, made some profit, or hopefully not some losses, but made some profits, I need to take it out. Now, there's still some challenge in that space. A third point is just some degree of policy certainty. It always helps to achieve a much needed advantage of sending the right signal. In many respects, when businessmen invest money anywhere in the world, they do it with a degree of risk, but they also don't want too much risk or uncertainty. So those are things that I feel that policymakers in Nigeria need to address going forward. Such visits are very good. They help to generate confidence. But at the end of the day, it's the businessman who is going to make that choice that, okay, I'm going to India or I'm going to Nigeria, and he must do it with a lot of information. He must also do it with a lot of confidence as well. And then he's managed or calculated the risk that, okay, I can take the risk, whatever that risk might be. So essentially, there's still need for some policy stability to generate more confidence.
Policy stability. What's the entire outlook for you? Let me say, basically, business environment and maybe the economy.
Cautious optimism.
So we must watch. We're not standing on the fence at all.
No. We have to. I think the best approach will just be cautious optimism. It cannot be pessimistic. That would be going too far. But at the same time, whatever reforms have been taken on board, we have to be cautiously optimistic. I don't see how else it can be.
Finally, our Trade Investment Ministry, we have a new minister, and many are saying that conversations need to change because they are also going to facilitate most of these deals.
Oh, definitely, yes.
What sort of conversations are you expecting from that ministry and, of course, with international parties? Okay,
very good. Incidentally, the ministry has a new head, a new minister, yes, as it were. And I am pretty confident about the antecedents of that minister.
Pebek,
yes.
and all that we've
exactly.
seen, a lot of work.
Pebek, a lot of work stands to the credit of that minister,
yes.
Mrs. Oduwole.
Yes.
She's done quite a lot of work in Pebek. She's done quite a lot of work in the ease of doing business. And so the antecedent is clearly indicative of somebody who understands the kind of policy reforms that should be done, which still buttresses what I said of cautious optimism. Sure. But definitely the idea going forward should be that that ministry or any ministry should be an enabler. It's not about revenue generation. It's not about just making money. It should be an enabler, whether it's a small business, a micro business, medium, or even the very large one. It should all be an enabler. Hopefully to generate jobs, and for government to bring in taxes.
Well, I must thank you so much. Legal practitioner Mr. Kunle Ajagbe is also director at the Nigeria-India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Let's see what plays out Nigeria-India relationship in another, say, 5 years?
Maybe before then.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Hope to have you in again soon.
Thank you.